I hope it makes sense that I'm covering Rance 02 after Rance 01. 2 does come after 1 after all. So you'd think that the game Rance 02 would have been released after Rance 01. But no, 02 came out before 01. Why? Why was it that when Alicesoft decided to remake a Rance game, they decided to go out of order and start off with 02? My best guess as to why is because Rance 02 was originally released as part of the Alice 2010 compilation, which despite the name came out in 2009. My assumption is that those at Alicesoft thought they could quickly whip up a remake of Rance 2 as it is both short as hell and not as archaic as Rance 1. Maybe they thought about it and decided that Rance 1 would need a more extensive remake, which it would get. But I already made a video on Rance 01, so naturally Rance 02 would come next. Thank you to my supporters. If you liked the video, consider subscribing or even joining the Patreon, link on screen and in the description. Because of the nature of talking about eroge, if you want to find an uncensored version of this video, you can only find it on Patreon. When I say I'm covering Rance 02 The Rebellious Maidens, that's technically not true. In Alice 2010, there were 2 versions of Rance 02. There's the base version that is supposedly a very close one-to-one remake of the original, just with updated art, practically the same script, same game flow, all that shit. I wouldn't know all the changes in the base version of 02, just going off of what I've read about it since I didn't play that and instead opted to play through the Kai version. You can tell you're playing through Rance 02 Kai since the title screen has new plastered on it now. So what the fuck is the difference between the 2 versions? Changes include balancing, some altered puzzle solutions to make it a bit simpler, some bug fixes, but the most important and most extensive of the changes is an entirely new script. This shit was not only expanded but only better than the original script, but was also changed to fit the canon of the later Rance games. Rance 02 was fucking funny. I legit laughed out several times over the bullshit happening in this game. Probably more than I did in Rance 01. Rance shows up in the town of Custom, which got fucked over by the 4 witches who got possessed by the rings they're wearing. Clearly, the solution is to get the rings off of them. Stop for a second and think how you'd do that. Maybe restrain them and just take the ring, maybe. Nah, that shit is stuck, and as it turns out, the only weakness of these rings is that only virgin women can wear them. The cure? Sex. Who fucking made these rings like this? The world absolutely bends over backwards in its logic to be hypersexual for no fucking reason to the point of being comical. Now, let's be real for a second. Sexual assault is not funny. Not in the slightest. I would understand if you aren't interested in playing the Rance games because you just don't fuck with it. That's completely justified. It really is a shame that the 2 defaults in eroge is either a pure love story between 2 characters or an extensive amount of sexual assault. But the fact that that's the solution isn't what is funny to me. It's the absurdity of the situation and how ridiculous everything happening in this world is. One of my favorite examples of the absurdity of this world would be the mechanism on how to turn on some teleporters. So Rance and one of the now ringless witches, Maria Custard, have teamed up and are exploring the dungeon and need to turn on some teleporters only to find out that the only way to turn them on and progress is to have a woman expose herself in increasingly perverted ways to a mirror. A talking mirror. A talking mirror that then narrates the situation, but then goes off on its own cringe fantasy about Maria's exposure. Talking about shit like exposing a classroom and bullshit like that. And like, the mirror is cringe, and the game is almost lingering on this fuck-ass mirror's narration as if to drill home that it is cringe. You should laugh at it and how absurd this all is. It's not just the story that's funny, but all the characters populating the game are as well. Everyone here has their own distinct, often outlandish and entertaining personality and traits, and I thoroughly enjoy reading the dialogue with them. Tomato puree is great. Not the sauce. I mean, that is good too, but I'm referring to the item shop girl here. She's got a habit of ending all of her sentences as questions, and whenever she does it pisses Rance off. And like, she just keeps doing it and it keeps fucking with Rance super hard. You get used to Rance being both a jackass and the embodiment of a slut that whenever you see him get thrown off, like with Tomato, it's entertaining. And Bird's arc is hilarious to me, because his shit is about the revelation that he's a cuck. Like, he proposes to a girl he just met, gets bodily maimed, and while he's bleeding everywhere, Rance just calls him a bitch and that Sill doesn't feel shit for him. What a cuck. So fucking funny. What I find impressive is the fact that this game's gameplay can be funny as well, not just its writing. How many games can you say that's true to? Probably not much. Rance 02 is a turn-based RPG, and alongside the standard attack options you typically find in the genre, there's another button where you're able to badmouth the enemy. Talking shit to most enemies doesn't really do much, but when it does, it's surprisingly the most effective option you have available. There's an enemy you'll encounter called Toko. Rance just hits her with a low-tier god and she just straight up fucking kills herself? Like, damn, that's fucked up. There's a boss fight against Ragesis, and if you badmouth him, it doesn't actually do anything except give you this text box. Heh, he just fucking laughed. The way this is worded makes it feel like Rance couldn't believe that he just fucking laughs at him. Like, genuinely surprised at it. Rance 02 is a dungeon crawler. It's kinda top down, kinda on a grid. You move along on the map using cardinal directions, and sometimes events will be on a tile you step on, but more often than not, you'll get a monster encounter. If you've played a JRPG before, you more or less know what to expect here. I do enjoy the music you get while exploring the dungeon though. They're pretty solid, but also short as hell with some tracks lasting sub 1 minute. And when you enter the camp menu to do your party management or save the game, it cuts the dungeon song off and plays the menu theme. So most of the game you're really hearing the first 10 or so seconds of the dungeon themes with how fucking often they keep resetting after something happens. My favorite song in this game has to easily go to the theme of the Four Witches. Super solid track. Just a shame that the loop is only 43 fucking seconds long. I'd love to have a more fleshed out version of this track. Hopefully that's in one of the other games and this isn't just cope. So you explore around in the dungeon, and by that I mean take like 5 to 10 steps and get attacked by some dickhead monster. Rance 02's combat is an evolution of the combat from Rance 1 in that it asks the question, what if Rance 1's combat was actually real and not nothing? You got attacks. Like, more than fucking one option. A standard attack and a patented Rance attack. Both cost SP, but Rance attack costs more SP but theoretically does more damage. Even though you have the other option, it kinda fucking sucks. Rance attack has a higher chance than I'd like to do piss poor damage to the point that it's no different from a standard attack. It can fucking miss. And all that for a huge chunk of SP? Hell no. For any longer fight, it really isn't worth it because of the SP cost, because you'll hit low on SP so fast and so often that you'll be spending most of the battle hitting rest, and that shit sucks. And you don't get control over any of your party members. Let's say you're wanting to heal. You've got two options. The first is to spend your turn using a healing item yourself, and the second is to hope your party member heals you. In my experience, the CPU party only heals you when you're in yellow health range, which can often be a bit too low for comfort. It could be risky trusting them to heal you, and if you don't, you might get unlucky and get killed off. What this means is so often in the early game, Rance has to be the healer shoving ibuprofen down everyone's throat until you get enough defense on everyone. Once you've got that defense, then the other characters become more reliable healers and Rance can finally go back to being the offense rather than the support. Honestly, the combat sucks ass. It lacks any variety given that most of the time I found myself mashing the standard attack, really only keeping track of the health values in case it gets too low, at which point I switch over to dealing over-the-counter meds. After a certain point, the only thing that kept me sane was the control key, which made the animations play at super fucking speed, which allowed me to blitz through the fight. Word of warning, make sure to let go of control after finishing story fights, because control is not only a battle speed up button, but also a dialogue skip button, so I accidentally skipped the post-boss dialogue and had to reload and fight the boss again in order to actually read it. But hey, Rance isn't the only character you get to play as here. After the first chapter, Sill gets teleported away and you play a few chapters as her. You don't get control over Bird though, just Sill. Instead of a weapon attack, she's got 3 different magic spells to choose from, even though I genuinely can't tell if there's any difference to them. She also gets access to a heal spell, which gives her more variety in her gameplay than Rance does. The issue is that all of her kit costs a shit ton of SP. So early on as Sill, you're going to spend most of the time resting and building that SP back up. At least enough SP to cast heal. Now, there is an item on the ground in the dungeon that reduces her SP cost. Issue is, there is zero fucking indication anywhere that the item even exists and is even located on that specific tile. So I wouldn't doubt that most people probably just walked right over it and fucking hated playing as Sill, given how her gameplay at that point is hitting rest the majority of the time. I wasn't using a guide for the most part, but I was curious about something else and saw the part in the guide that said it existed. That's legitimately the only reason I even knew it existed, and now you do too. In the event that you don't walk past that item, this makes Sill a touch more fun than Rance because at least you have another option in casting heal. And because heal is more effective than ibuprofen, You're not spending the whole fight spamming ibuprofen to heal back up like you are with Rance. And believe me, that shit happens more than not at all. Rance 02 isn't that long of a game, so even if you think the combat sucks cock, it does suck cock a little bit, you won't be committing to that cock sucking for that long of a time. My playthrough, for reference, took 7 hours and 45 minutes. That's a respectable length, but makes it short as hell for RPG standards. If this shit was 20 or more hours, I don't think I'd be able to recommend that. I don't know if I'd be able to stomach Rance 02 if it was that long, even if I found the rest of the game hilarious as I do. But that is fortunately not the case. So yeah, sure, fuck it. Why not give this game a shot? The writing and art and music is all good and makes playing through the game worth it to me. But let's say you don't want to touch Rance 02, but you do want to get the story of it. Maybe you intend on playing a later game. That's why something like Rance II Digest exists. Rance II Digest was released alongside Rance I Digest as part of the release for Rance 6. And Digest is fucking right, as it was able to condense a 7 to 8 hour game down to 45 minutes. Cuts out all gameplay and turns the story into a short visual novel using assets from the original Rance 2. Despite only being 45 minutes, it for some reason has a chapter select? Who the hell is that strapped for time? Anyway, it's a beat for beat retelling, and if that's what you're looking for, then Digest has you covered. If you're familiar with Rance 01 and Rance 1, you know that those two games are very different. If you're not familiar, go watch my video on it. I would greatly appreciate that. So, maybe you start to wonder what the differences between Rance 02 and Rance 2 are. Let me tell you, barely any fucking difference whatsoever. Rance 02, the not Kai version, is a one-to-one remake of Rance 2 in gameplay structure and what you do. The only real differences to be found there is a fresh coat of paint with updated art and music. There are some minor differences in Kai, but those differences are hella minor. And the script in Rance 2 is just not as good as the script in Rance 02 Kai. Kai is just way fucking funnier. In both versions you run into the photographer Pepe Wijima. In Kai, there's a whole bit where in the middle of their argument, everyone stops and poses for the camera every time someone goes say cheese. It's goofy and fun to read that scene. In Rance 2, that scene doesn't fucking exist. Rance just steals from her and that's the end of that. How unfun. Real shit. Don't bother with the original Rance 2. Just play Rance 02 Kai instead. It's just the same game, but better, as it has quality of life shit like better information communication, such as having your health out of total health when you're in battle, unlike in the original where it just lists your current health value. And the whole better script thing, which I've already discussed. The only thing that the original has going for it is the one Rance portrait where it looks like he's pouting. Outside of that, Rance 02 Kai is the superior second Rance game.